I'll first give some teasers on the different aspect in generative AI. I think throughout the whole implementations or the engagement with the customers, there are many questions that raise. So this is a very typical one. So AI has been around for many, many, many years, right? So I call that as generative traditional AI. And then there's a generative AI certainly take the world by a storm, right? Since last year, especially when ChatGPT is coming to the world, right? So what is the difference between these two? And a lot of people are confusing and mixing up these two. That's why I think I would like to use this chance to share some perspective. For traditional AI has been exist for many years, and it is the real cases are typically used to predict which transactions are fraudulent, to predict what product do we upsell and cross sell to our customers, and so on and so forth. And as I used some of the examples early on, the fraud detections and also the upsell and cross sell, the purpose for this traditional AI is very narrow and it's very specific. You can't plug and play. You can't say use the model that you built for fraud detection for upsell and cross sell. You need to redo and maybe use some other algorithms to do it. However, traditional AI is good that because it is in production and practical usage for many big enterprises like banks, government, telco, insurance, and so forth. So it's live and alive, right, for traditional AI. Now, when generative AI take the world by storm, it is pretty fun, right? So we have tools like Midjourney for creating images. We have ChatGPT to allow us to chat, and many other tools that still in the space of generative AI. Though typically people are using it for fun, for a private or small usage, and it is really used to generate new data, right? In ChatGPT, it's generate the kind of informations that we ask, right? So it's answering on Q&A. You can help you to summarize. You can generate a new content. If you ask ChatGPT to write a essay, they can, right? Just give them some context. You will be able to write the essay. And it is good for any data, including text, including images, including audio, including video. So the type of data that go in and out it is unlimited way of for us to configure. However, one thing that I need to highlight is that generative AI at this moment is still less accurate than traditional AI. Traditional AI is purpose built. We are here to predict fraud, and it is able to predict fraud in a large extent if you use the right machine learning or deep learning or any other AI methods to do it. In generative AI, I think most of you will have encountered this before. The issue is the accuracy of the results, right? And you can actually trick the AI to do something that human will do. For example, you're just pressuring this generative AI to say that Q Link is a professor, is very successful, and so forth. And is all this may not be facts, but they will just allowing this data to be in and output it as such, right? So generative AI can produce less accurate information. So that's something that you need to take note. And therefore, it will have use cases that it is not right to use, or less good use cases on generative AI, which I'll touch on in a short while, right? So in a nutshell, generative AI is, or in short, GenAI, is powered by what I call as the foundational models. A lot of people like to use LLM, stand for large language model. Those are interchangeably correct. Though foundational model will capture a lot more things, because foundational models can also mean beyond large language, which is essential, but there's also images, there's also speech, there's also 3D signals, there's also videos, and any type of data that you can send in as foundational models, right? So it's beyond just large language per se. So you can actually train it, and you will be adopt to different tasks that you assign, right? It can be a Q&A, you can be extracting info, which we have some use cases later. And then there's other multimedia type, like for example, generating image, object recognitions, and so forth. So those are all possible using generative AI technology, which is powered by the foundational models, right? No, now, so as foundational models or LLM, how does this fit in the whole AI scheme, right? AI is actually a all-encompassing words or concept. It has many things that we will talk about, right? So machine learning, NLP, which is I would call that the grandfather or the father of large language model or generative AI or text, which already do a lot of amazing things, and therefore is part of it, right? So there's neural networks, there's deep learning, and you can see that large language model is fit in the intersection of all these terms and also AI methods that we have been using for many years. So it is just a repurpose of these capabilities to do something amazing, right? And take a step back. It is fun to use Midjourney. It is fun to use ChatGPT. Now, when the enterprises are thinking of adopting this, there are many considerations. This is some of them that I would extract based on my interactions with the corporates and also the other large organizations like government agencies. Number one, of course, is the cost, right? How costly it is to use generative AI use cases in an enterprise. The cost can be a big issue, which I'll come to that in a short while. Then we are talking about intellectual properties and legal consideration. Since large language model or foundational models is built by ingesting many third-party data that may include the data that has intellectual property rights. For example, the textbooks that written by some other people. How do we mitigate this particular risk, right? So those are some of the consideration. The quality and the accuracy. We don't want to let your chatbot, especially external-facing large language model powered chatbot, to start talking something that not representing your values, and therefore you get a very bad reputation risk, right? Data privacy is very important. We now knows that they are actually a large Korean company that actually have their staff written codes and use tools in generative AI public interface to actually get some codes in and out, and therefore some of the codes are being exposed. So that's the privacy risk that you want to not to happen in your organization. And since it's built by human, obviously there's embedded bias. One of them is definitely in languages, right? We also know that if you are doing it in the English, it is actually more accurate per se, right? Rather than using other languages. And we have experienced that. I will actually talk about it in the insurance customers examples in a short while, right? So there's less accurate in other languages, but there are more works to be done to enhance the accuracy. And we also want to reduce or minimize the hallucination or the robustness, so-called, right, of the results, because large language model or generative AI would have the risk of actually outputting some things that is not factual, right? So we want to reduce that. And last but not least, we want the results to be able to explain and ideally point us where are the references and pointers that you will extract from internal sources. So that's actually some of the considerations that we have seen for enterprise usage for generative AI, right? So let's talk about the first concern on cost. And for any organization, even though you are very big, you want to look at cost benefits study, which I'll talk about it in a short while. And nevertheless, I think you need to settle one thing, which is that able to cover the benefits on the cost, right? Technically speaking, if you are just using a very layman way of thinking, Midjourney is cheap, ChatGPT is free or very cheap, right? So in this case, you would infer that if you want to plug and play, so-called generative AI in enterprise, it could be cheap as well. The quick answer is that it is not to be, right? So I'll have a chance to discuss it in a short while. But one thing that you need to decide is that do you want to use open source models, which you have a lot of flexibilities, and of course you may have not needs to immediately start paying your vendor. For example, the third party API is OpenAI or Anthropic or any other large language model player, right, out there that provide APIs to you. So we'll talk about it in the next one or two slides. Because one important thing is that if you are not using something that pre-built, for example, in OpenAI or Anthropic, using the open source manner, for example, using the Meta solutions called Llama 2, for example, you have other quote unquote hidden costs, right? You need to have training and model serving costs. You need to hire people in ML engineering, ML ops. You need to process the data and so forth. So there are other considerations in cost which I'll tabulate in a right. So the next thing is it is actually in the in-house open source models versus commercial models. That's actually the differences that we have seen, right? So Llama 2 versus GPT 3.5 and 4, and you can actually compare across the quality, the cost, the latency, and also the privacy, right? In this case, we can see that for a pretty good in quality, okay quality open source models in Llama 2, which is powered by Meta, right? The cost can be very high, right? So that's actually something that we need to in consideration. The good thing is that I think from an organization perspective, we have actually experience in both OpenAI APIs as well as using open source LLM, for example, Llama 2 per se. So we can rate the good and bad, and how much investment and use cases that you want to invest in to decide what you're going to use. And there's a sneak preview of this earlier on, but in fact, we can actually segregate down on generative AI usage for enterprises. On the left is something that's pretty useful, and I think most of my use cases earlier on insurance and educations are basing on text. And of course, one thing that we are not using it because there are a lot of tools out there like Copilot and so forth that are able to generate codes for software engineers. So in general, most of the usage for enterprise at the moment are centralized around the left-hand side, the chatbot, the text generator, the code generator, right? And on the right-hand side, typically are the ones that are more product/marketing centric, that they need to generate images, they need to generate the videos, they need to generate the design. So from product development standpoint and from marketing standpoint, these are the tools that are able to help them in increasing the speed to deliver to the market. But there are many use cases that I can discuss in subsequent slides. Now, we need to look for the experts for advice, and Gartner obviously is a very respectable third-party market analyst for IT, right? So they are defined the steps, the 4 steps for enterprise adoption for GenAI. Number one, I think you need to have the visions. What is your goal and what's your success metrics? I have some examples in the next slides. And what are the values that you want to drive home? Do you have what are the business impact that you will drive home? Again, in the actual use cases, when I talk about the insurance company and also the education, I'll also share that. And do your people have the skill sets and able to change the way they work? That's also something that we need to take into consideration. What are the risks? One risk is obviously the regulatory risk. Is this have a regulatory impact? Will that impact your reputation? And again, do you have the competency internally to build and or use enterprise GenAI, right? Then we are talking about adoptions, because without adoptions, you build it and nobody use it, then there will be a problem, right? In terms of getting the values out. So we need to make sure that we can derive the value. And also we need to govern the whole AI output, AI decision framework, right? Now, this is just examples of what, if you are organizations, you need to consider when your board member or your senior management team are always talking about GenAI, how can I use it? GenAI, how can I use it? Then the example of that is that how can I use GenAI to do top line revenue growth, right? Potentially, you can put it into contract lifecycle management, which you can actually perform the contract writing in a very fast manner, right? Behavioral analytics and so forth. So that's actually something that you can think of how GenAI can potentially use in your organization, right? That will, of course, potentially includes improve customer satisfaction, which the use case of insurance will have that in a short while. And after that, you need to tabulate all the different potential use cases in, for example, GenAI for marketing, knowledge management and training for onboarding new customers, for example, and to derive what are the potential business value and also how feasible technically, right? Do you have the data? So all these are considerations that you need to put in, and then you rank it, and then either you do it internally or externally, which I'll cover that in a short while as well. Now, uh, GenAI is here, right? The questions to you as an organization is that, are you ready? And that's mainly focused on the technology as well as data. So there are a number of decisions and actions that you need to take if you want to embark on this journey. Of course, settling the use case, settling the cost and benefits analysis and so forth are important. Once that's settled, on the tech side, you need to ask yourself, which foundational model are we going to use? Are we going to use open source or paid model, commercial model? Are we going to do it in the cloud or put it on premise? So there are different considerations, and that will link to the next decision, which is your tech stack, right? What kind of technology are you going to use, right? And next is, what are the data to power all these use cases? And it works best for unstructured data for large language model. I'm purely talking about the textual one, right? Then we are also looking at how do we protect this data, because we don't want this data and the knowledge from after we do prompt engineering, for example, to leak out, right? So we need to protect it, we need to govern this, and how do we have the proper ingestion framework and structure so that the entire governance of the knowledge layer on top of the large language model to be able to protect it, to be protected in the organization. So that's really important when you are going through this within your enterprises, right? Now, this is just some examples, not really excessive, of potential generative AI data sources, right? So it can be really from your enterprise data, your sales history, your CRM informations like the interactions with your customers and so forth, all the way down to, for example, you can point to a website and the crawler will be able to crawl the websites for details. Some examples in educations that I will show. And of course, a lot of documents residing in your organizations are very good source of information, and you see that how policy information for insurance will be able to have good help and derive great value for the insurance company later, right? That includes also the comments, the feedback, the interviews that you gather from different source of documents within your organization. And of course, you can also tap into forums or news for data points that you want to ingest in as a specific knowledge layer within the enterprise GenAI. Now, after we ask the questions on whether your technology or your data is ready, the next question is really your people is ready, right? Your people can mean two things, right? Number one is really the people that who can build generative AI. Number two is whether the people who is going to use generative AI, I will call them the user, are they ready for the change? Because there will be some changes to their daily life, which I'll cover in a short while. Now, the focus will be for these questions are solely on who is going to build, right? And I found some very good internal team that are able to do that, and there are companies in across the region that I have seen that have built amazing things using just internal team. So those are all very good, right? If you have 50 or 100 data scientists, let them to create a team that just focus on generative AI. Very likely you may need help from external consultants, especially if your internal team is too bogged down to settle all the business as usual aspect. The external companies or consultants will be able to help you to build very quick. And of course, though it will cost slightly more than what you do in the internal team. And the better approach that I've seen is a hybrid. You have your internal team augmented by the external team, and you have some residual knowledge to be able to build a center of excellence to scale up the different use cases for different users, different type of documents within your organizations. Or you can actually go for some pre-built solutions. I do know that some organizations have adopted this, and there will be a very centralized or very focused way of saying this particular generative AI solutions is meant for marketing designer, for example. there are solutions out there to do that, right? So these are different choices that you can consider, and to assess whether or not your people are ready. If it's yes or no, then I think there are different actions that you can take, right? This is not an excessive list. As I understand, our friend from Accenture has actually compiled a long list of 400 over generative AI use cases, right? And therefore, this is just a pretty subset of whatever other people may have been generated. But as you can see, for each of these boxes, right, is actually almost all the entire organizations. We have some use cases that you can start looking at. And therefore, going back to the matrices, the decision framework for selecting generative AI use cases, you really need to look for the right ones that has high business value that you can derive. And also, you can also derive the technology feasibility and also the readiness of people who might use it, so that they are willing to change their life and so forth, to adopt this, right? So some example is that for marketing is idea generation. You can get them to generate. You can get generative AI to do product guides of to generate fact sheet, right? And to also generate personalized sales recommendation. For example, who are we supposed to visit in the afternoon, for example. So those are some of the things that are pretty good for generative AI to work on. And similarly, from HR or talent agenda, there are many works that you can actually use generative AI to work on, including having a personalized training. You can say this is a learning companion or training companion for your staff to upskill them to the level that they want, right? So in examples in education, GenAI, we have one examples on that as well, right? So some of the tips that I can derive when we want to select the use cases. I know that generative AI is sometimes very deceiving, right? So you think that it's very good and you want everything to be Gen AI. And sometimes Gen AI becomes a buzzword that if things are not Gen AI, for example, it's purely just natural language processing, you think that Gen AI will be able to help you. But you may not need to use Gen AI, but you use a traditional or narrow AI will be able to help you, right? So the rule of thumb that I would suggest is that there are use cases that you shouldn't use Gen AI, you use other methods to help you. That will include things that are very regulatory compliance or oversight driven. For example, the risk side, the credit risk scoring side, the fraud detection side, and so forth. You may not want to use Gen AI to help you because you need real-time information or a sophisticated risk model to be able to produce the results at the kind of desired accuracy that you want, right? So those are generally the use cases that you shouldn't touch or you shouldn't use Gen AI. And also those numerical calculation purposes also is not the best use cases for Gen AI. It is suitable for something that you can generate text, summation, content, and so forth. And also you want to have some information discovery, some Q&A, and you know more. So those are a good use cases for the generative AI in the enterprises, right? So I've been spoken for a lot of rule of thumb, the what, the why of enterprise Gen AI, and some other aspect in there. I think you may be wondering, hey, Yukley has promised us that you have use case to share. Where is it? So right now I'll start sharing the use cases. And in a very general, from a just insurance perspective, you will have many use cases that you can use Gen AI to be powered, right? You can actually enrich the policy holder experience. That would potentially be using the output through your self-service portal or your mobile app, for example. And for call center insights as well, you may be able to leverage on that an internal virtual agent, or you can use it to process claim or fraud detection. And then you want to empower them on the agents, right? Or you want to use it to read documents, you want to use it for translation of languages, and so on and so forth. So many usage. The use cases that I would like to share with you on something that we have done with an insurance company is somewhere along the line of a few, right? It is acted as an internal virtual agent. It is used to empower the agent. It is a NLP document analysis as well. And also it can have language and translations capabilities, right? So the users of this particular tool is actually the internal call center agent and also the insurance agent themselves, right? And if you are not in the industry, or you are not, even if you are in the industry of insurance, and you may not be familiar with the kind of cost or workflow, right? Typically, if you can imagine, right, if you are engaging with an agent for your insurance, if you have questions, you ask your insurance agent, there's a high chance that your questions may not be able to answer by the insurance agent, and they have to ask somebody. What do? They will call the call center. So what is the net result is that the call center are flooded with call, and 60% of them are actually the insurance agent, not the customers directly. So therefore, the tools that are being used, the first part is really to empower the call center agent as well as the internal agent, so that the call has been reduced. Number one. Number two, the call center agent will have something that they can actually get to know real fast to respond back, either the agent or the customers. That's the first use case for the insurance customers. The second use case is very enlightening, at least to me personally, and I'll talk about that when I reach there. So let's review the first use case. Yeah. Now, the first use case involves different languages. This is the Taiwan arm. As you can see, this traditional Chinese of the insurance company that we work with, right? In this case, you can actually ask questions based on the internal policy documents that we have ingested in to talk about this. This is an internal view of the question and answer, right? User obviously is the questions, and then the assistant is the internal chatbot, and you can see that the answer generated are pretty accurate, right? So, and even though it's in different languages like traditional Chinese, and is able to read the content and able to even find out where to find the references, right? So those are some of the capabilities that a document generative AI for call center, and also for the insurance agent as well. If you just want to get the information out, rather than you have to read through the different versions of the insurance policy and to find out the answers for your customers, right? So very useful, cut down a lot of time and save time to get the answers, right? Now, this is a very interesting use cases, again, to me, right? So this is to serve two types of users within the organization, namely the product people, the ones that build and maintain the insurance product. The other type, obviously, is the agent, right? So the data that you ingest in is the insurance policy data of your organization and also your competitors, right? So let's take a look into the different aspects. Number one, you can also ask questions like, let's say you have many plans, and you want to understand which plan would offer a products that have COVID-19 coverage, right? So you have the answers to it. Obviously, there are some information that we blanco that will tell which so to protect our customers. The next thing is, of course, you can further drill down into other questions like you want to know the annual limit of the plan and so on and so forth. So you can actually have that covered, right? The next question is you can also ask, what is the limitation of my product, right? So, and you can see the answer is pretty accurate to a large extent, right? You have a deducible, and of course, people who is in the insurance industry will know all this text, all this text means, right? Rather than you have to really analyze, it will actually summarize for you, especially for the newbie in the product development, as well as for the new insurance agent, right? Now, that's getting more interesting. You can also ingest similar data, and because this data is also publicly accessible through the competitor's website, you can ingest those information in. Then you can say, hey, let me know more about let's do a summary, right, for our competitors product, right? What is this and so on and so forth. So they loaded, we have helped them to load 3 competitors data, right? And this is the summary of it. And you can also do a comparison, right? That your product versus 3. Right now it's just you can actually go down to what are the similarities and the differences to compare. Next questions. What are the benefits of your products versus the other? So getting more interesting, right? You're now able to do the comparison. And you doesn't need a human brain to go through it. Of course, you won't supposed to 100% listen to this. You can also digest it, but this one gives you a head start, right? And you can actually fine tune your knowledge along the way, or you can also further ask the questions, right? So now you can take a look into the comparison on the benefits. You can also break down. So this one is everything into one. Now you can break down by competitors one by one that you can compare, right? And next, you can compare, and right now you can also know your weaknesses, right? Because people are going to sell against you, right? So what will be the weaknesses in your product compared to your peers? That will be something that you can ask. And next, you can actually break down one by one with different competitors, right? What is the comparison between them and your weakness against one of each one of these competitors? So in a very detailed way. And last but not least, you still want to sell. If you are insurance agent, then you are very worried because you have some weaknesses in your product. You still want to sell it, right? So in this case, how do you sell? What are the strong points? So for example, you emphasize that investment link insurance. You emphasize the hospitalization and surgical benefits and so on and so forth, right? So those are the strong points that the generative AI within the insurance company are able to advise you. And of course, to make sure that it is explainable, the agent or the product owner can go to the reference to really take a look. And last but not least, I believe for the insurance use cases is really about now you still want to sell and you want to sell against one of each of these competitors. What are the strong points that you want to emphasize, right? So and yeah, the tools will be able to list down for you. And right now, voila, you have a capable, even though they are new, agent who knows your product very well just by asking these few questions that I run you through, right? And of course, ideally, they will still read through the entire brochures. They will read through the entire product information from the competitor side. Right now, this is a synthesis of everything that you can actually get started real quick. Imagine the time to market for this agent, right? So that will be very powerful when you train your agent. So that's for the insurance. And hopefully you get some thoughts on how do it apply to your industry or apply to your enterprises, right? Now, let's change gear to education. Education is a space that make me fearful because the power of generative AI means that the teachers, number one, would get a very good companion. The students would get a very good companion, but at the same time, the power of it would actually reduce some of the learning and teaching process into minimum, which I will show you in some of these use cases. And of course, using it well, it is a good companion for your teachers. It is a good companion for learning as well, right? So first use case is very simple, right? We just load some documents, for example, in this case, some general information handbooks, and we can just find out some information out there. So nothing to shout about. Is something that everybody will be able to do. In this case, you can save time to implement it for a external facing virtual assistant or chatbot, right? So something very simple. You just extract the right information out there, and we give you the right information that you want, right? Now things are getting a bit fun, right? Now imagine that you are a lecturer, you are a professor, or you are a teacher. What is the time needed for you to do a lot of things? Of course, you need to prepare for your course or your class. You need to know how to teach, but at the same time, you also want to have different interactions in your class. For example, you need to generate quiz, you need to generate fresh card, right? So in this case, as long as you load a particular information, for example, a textbooks or a link or something along that line, you can just use generative AI to generate the fresh card and to fill up the quiz, right? So in this case, you can actually get it run. And this is the information that generate the fresh card that able to generate and the bank quiz, right? That you can get the generative AI to generate. The other things that you can get generative AI to do is there are many new informations that you need to learn as a lecturer or as a student. You still want to reiterate, but let's say you don't have that time. You want to know in a nutshell what this is all about. You can actually get it generated, right? So, for example, this attention is all you need. It could be potentially tens of pages of a research paper. You can actually get the conclusion, for example, right? So let's take a look. So you generate the conclusion of this paper, and it will be able to tell you what is this conclusion is all about for this paper, right? Now, things are getting a little bit more interesting. If you want to generate the question and answer pair, for example, you want to have generate about 10 questions for the generative AI. Now, you need to know you are able to now just with a click of a button and also load the information up. And with sufficient similar information that has been trained in the past, you are able to now generate the questions like this and also the answer. So in this case, the preparation for the class can be very strenuous, and of course, you can even have it translated if you want to, right? So generative Q&A can be very simple right now for the teachers or the lecturers. What's next? The other big piece for the lecturers is to generate the evaluations or testing questions, right? And also the marking of it. So right now you can use this generative AI to be able to now mark, generate the questions and also mark for you, right? As you can see from the screen, these are the questions that is generated. You can also help you to submit the kind of questions, the answer that your students are getting back, and to also get them to mark whether it's right, whether it's wrong, how many marks is assigned. What you need as a lecturer or teacher is then review the answers and let it go. And right now you save a lot of times to create the questions, release it, and also to mark it. Even though those questions, this answer may be in a text format rather than the selection, right? Multiple choice selection. So a very good way to save time. And therefore you can actually do more with less time, right? Rather than every day you are busy preparing the class, you are busy preparing all these evaluations and marking. Right. So these are the two use cases in insurance sector and education sector. I hope it is enlightening, and definitely when my team produce these results, it's very enlightening for me as well. And obviously, I'm fearful, right, that there are a lot of talks about generative AI replacing jobs. Potentially, it may happen, right? But there will be new jobs that actually will be created. Just like when we remove the needs to actually have the horse rider, and right now we have driver, we have people who need to build cars and so forth. So the technology wave will not just purely replace, but it will generate other jobs that is more meaningful in advance, right? So now the next thing that I would like to share is what should we envision the future of generative AI, the next generation of enterprise Gen AI, right? So according to Air16Z, which is a very prominent venture capitalist, right? The Andreessen Horowitz, they have actually viewed this from this manner. And if you imagine your typical experience with generative AI is actually a prompt, right? No matter Midjourney or ChatGPT, you have a prompt and you ask the questions, you will generate many informations for you, right? You will summarize something, it will generate the informations for you. So those are well and good first wave for fun, for shareability, and so forth. Now, the wave two is generative AI in synthesis, right? You will synthesize the information, you collect the information, and they will produce the insights. So it will be built into your workflow and embedded to it. That will be very powerful, right? So the benefit is really to improve the speed and also the quality. And it is really domain-specific information. Right now, we are working with a call center company that's very large in the world. And in this case, it will change the world. It will change their world. The reason is that in the past, when we talk about call center operators, one important aspect is that you need to respond with a service level agreement like 2 hours. Right now, with generative AI, your response time can be reduced down to minutes, like 5 minutes. Imagine that this is the difference between you and your competitors. You would change the game forever for them, right? So right now, I think it's more on our imaginations to look at what are the use cases that we can employ. And when you compare the so-called wave 1 and wave 2 in the context of AI16sec, I'll just quote two examples. In the past, I think, or right now, a lot of use cases for GenAI is really about we can actually generate the messages for outbound, more personalized messages, and then we send it out. That's useful, right? However, right now, we can go to the synthesis AI type. We can actually consolidate all this information back, right? And also inform how the cold outbound email is best personalized. It's able to now advise you rather than just purely generate based on the accounts and individual basis. That's the powerful wave that is coming along in the next wave of GenAI. Now let's look at the other aspect, legal, right? Legal has been practicing GenAI using drafting the legal documents. Would that have great help? Yes, great help, right? So save time and so forth in drafting out the legal documents. And right now, in synthesis AI, we can actually use it to summarize the most important issues in the contracts, right? And also to assure that the research and to revise a litigation brief, you are able to now have intelligence into it, rather than you just blindly generate or draft a legal document. So those are all good stuff that we are looking forward to, and in fact is here and now that we can actually use, right? Now, I've been talking for more than half an hour for the topic of enterprise GenAI. These are the summaries that I will derive, right? Generative AI, the technology is ready, and we have already shown you if you made a comment at the start of the call, that technology is here. There are companies, there are organizations that already benefited out of it. Are you ready to use it, right? Are you ready to use it? Is your people ready to use it? In this case, in our two examples, the insurance agent, are they ready to use it? The call center agent, are they ready to use it? The educators like teachers, are they ready to use it as a companion, right? Now, ask yourself, your organization, are they ready? Ready in terms of the use cases, the business cases, where to start with, the data. Do you have your documents ready to ingest? And what are the success metrics that you derive? Are your people ready? Your process ready? And whether your tech stack is ready, right? And ensure that you do it right, because it's enterprise. The keyword is enterprise. You want to contain it into a safe box and continue to derive value rather than expose you to security risks or other risks, right? And if you do it right, I can promise you that enterprise GenAI will change your organization forever.
The participant is really interested in GenAI, but how can he get started?
Okay, I think it's a very fundamental questions. I assume that so there are two angles to these questions, right? One is really on a personal level, how can this participant started? I'll answer more on the second scenario, which is he or she is looking at the enterprise perspective on his or her own organization. How can this organization get started? So from that basis, very fundamentally is really looking at where would potentially GenAI bring more value. So it's really from a business angle that to derive the use cases. So find the use cases first, then find the potential business benefits that they can get. I think earlier on I have shared about the educations as well as the insurance one. The numbers for the insurance one is actually pretty mind-boggling, right? So they can actually reduce up to 60% call just because of implementing this. So there will be a lot of savings from a call center perspective. So I think from a business level, you need to find that kind of use cases to get started. And then you can look at the feasibility on how to gather sufficient data. And in this case, for the example that I was given, is the insurance policy documents and other data within the insurance firm, which I think is readily available. Then we'll talk about the tech stack and some other things. So net to get started, in a nutshell, is find the right use case that have big impact and feasible.
Okay, thank you, Ling. Hope this will be helpful for the participants. And then second questions we have here is, should we use commercial Gen AI like Open AI or just open source?
Very good questions. And I think I have one slide early on to address that. It's really depending on what you are looking at. There's pros and cons. And even for commercial AI, there's beyond OpenAI, there's also Anthropic that right now partner closely with AWS, for example. So there's no right or wrong answer. But if you want to get started and you have lesser resources, then the commercial edition of GenAI would be pretty much readily available, and you need less resource in terms of human talent to get started. But if you have a longer term goal, you have resources, and you may want to contain what you are being shared with the commercial AI. That's also one of the considerations, right? The privacy and the secrecy of what you are doing internally within your organization. Then you may have to consider really a open source AI that you have control with. So yeah, that's a quick answer to that questions.
Okay, thank you, Yoling, for the answer. So the question here that we have is that how should we confirm that the outcome of Gen AI are safe?
Right. Very good questions, which is actually one of the biggest concern for a lot of organization, right? Whether the answer coming out is that really like a hallucination that start talking about non-facts, right? So in this case, there are many techniques that you can use to ensure that the outcome are safe. Number one is really to contain that answer to the knowledge base that you are providing, rather than go down to the level of the foundation model to capture that. But there are all other techniques, like for example, using a lot of as well as the other techniques, for example, using the RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, techniques that are actually able to grab information from the knowledge that you be ingested in. So those are different techniques that we can ensure. And of course, last but not least, is to use, for example, a techniques like RAG to actually code the source. So in this case, or the reference, right? In this case, the source of the reference will be something that the user of the GenAI are able to cross-check that for the confirmation that this is actually a fact rather than something that is created by the GenAI.
Okay, thanks, Yoling. I think everyone might be quite curious about the safety problem, right? And then I think this will be the last question. So how can we get better accuracy for the outcome? For the output of GenAI? And yeah, this will be the question.
Okay, thanks. So one mechanism is actually something that I've shared earlier on. Use a lot more RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, to be able to now get better and more concise output. And of course, there are all other mechanisms that you can employ, and you can even scale up to your own LM in your own organization. You can go to that level, which means that you need to apply different mechanism, like a typical machine learning project. You can go through self-supervised machine learning. You can go through supervised machine learning. You can tune the parameter, and you can even sort of adding retrain the entire LM with your own knowledge, so that it becomes very confined to the knowledge that within your organization. So these are some of the examples that you can actually ensure the accuracy of the LM or increase the accuracy of the LM.